All right, welcome to episode 67 of the 2-Minute Warning. Back to college football today. Looking at the Texas A&M Aggies, led by Kellen Mond. Solid, very solid team, number 5 ranked. Will we see this team in the playoffs, and if so, what's it going to take to get in there?
Really, it's kind of unfortunate for Texas A&M because unlike the Gators, even though they're ranked ahead of the Gators, they don't really control their own fate. Yeah, they both need to win out the season, but for the SEC championship, it's unlikely Texas A&M will be there unless Alabama comes out and loses 2 games for no reason. So that's kind of tough. If the Gators somehow win an SEC championship, I don't think Texas A&M has a shot because I think then the Gators and Alabama will both be there, along with Clemson and Ohio State, and then even Notre Dame will be in the mix for the hunt with Texas A&M, and there's just really no slipping spot for them. And then even if Alabama does win, it's close because then they'll be competing for Notre Dame and the ACC and have to hope they win and knock out Clemson to open a spot for them. So you really need the 2 best teams in the country, Alabama and Clemson. You need Alabama to win, and Clemson, in my opinion, the best team in the country to lose, and I just don't see that happening.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. It's Texas A&M doesn't really have the power to control their own destiny, which is unfortunate because
Alabama's going to take the
A&M
West.
A&M's a very talented squad, but unfortunately they're just going to be reliant on basically what happens with Notre Dame, Clemson, and Alabama and Florida. So right now, I don't foresee a scenario where A&M makes it. I think that Clemson's gonna win out and run the table all the way through the ACC championship game, so they'll be in. I got Florida winning against Alabama, so Florida and Alabama I think would be in the playoff if that were to be the case.
Yeah.
And then if I still think that Ohio State's gonna run all the way through, win the Big Ten, and they'll be in there.
Yeah.
And then who knows what could also happen with Oregon, if they run the table. We'll see how that plays out because it's still very early in the Pac-12 season. We have to see how, those games shake out for Oregon, so we'll see. But I don't think A&M's getting in there right now.
I was going to mention, too, they do have a relatively tough schedule. I mean, they got to play Ole Miss and Auburn, and it's at Auburn. Auburn's, that's the only game that they have less than a 50% chance to win. Texas A&M does, and Auburn's shown some life this season. Ole Miss has shown a really solid offense against most of the teams they played. I mean, they put up 41 against the Gators, I think, and 38 against Alabama. Yeah, they can really drive the ball down the field, put up over 600 yards against both those teams. So there is a chance they lose, and then that would just completely wipe them out. But as Greg said, I have heard a little bit of talk about if an undefeated Pac-12 team runs their division, there's a chance they sneak it in. But like Carson mentioned, I believe, just too small of a sample size. I don't know how realistic that is.
Yeah, that's
Let's see how good Oregon actually is.
And they don't have to play a single ranked team between Southern California,
kind of
Washington,
like the UCF
Washington
situation
State,
a few years ago.
And UCLA. They don't play anybody good. But ultimately for A&M, it's going to be a no for me for them making it in. Unfortunately for them, I think they're a very solid team. Of course, they're the 5 spots. They're just on the outside looking in, but doesn't give them a good shot to get in. I predict that when they play Ole Miss, they won't win that game, which will then solidify them not getting in. That Ole Miss team, led by Plumlee and Corral under center, 2 interchangeable quarterbacks that have been averaging over 35 points a game this year, beat the Gators with 41, put up almost 40.
They did not beat the Gators.
Sorry, I'm thinking of A&M. Yes, you're right. They put up 35 against the Gators. Anyway, this Ole Miss team averaging a lot of points. I think they'll come out and beat A&M and then kind of get rid of all this speculation that we have for them. But I think A&M's a solid team that'll probably finish with 2 losses. But too much needs to happen outside of their own control to get them in. And I think that it'll be determined by them losing a regular season game. Either against Auburn, like Wade said, that 24th ranked Auburn team is kind of underrated in my opinion. Potential to win a big game, even though they don't really show that with their ranking. So I don't think A&M goes undefeated from here on out, which of course puts them out of contention for top 4.
Even though we all said no, and I do think that'll happen, it's not impossible. I mean, if Clemson somehow spanks Notre Dame and they fall out, that 4th spot's really open for Texas A&M. If the Gators lose, I mean, there really is no other team unless Cincinnati for some reason comes in from 6 to 4, but I don't see that happening.
Yeah.
But like Carson said, for them to just rely on winning the next 4 games is not really 100% going to happen.
You never know. I mean, Notre Dame could drop a regular season game and still be able to play.
Right, that's the
It's
point.
so
That's the thing about all
this.
this is a regular season loss for any of these teams in contention
Changes
throws everything off.
Yep.
And especially Ohio State, because they're the one team that has no strength of schedule really. So one loss puts them out of the picture completely.
Besides
Unless it's to
Besides
Indiana.
yeah,
There's a
besides.
chance they still make it with a loss
Right.
to Indiana.
The 10 ranked Indiana, yeah,
Close game though.
yeah, that's a good point. But we're predicting to see a Final Four with 3 one-loss teams, assuming Gators make it in, Clemson make it in.
Alabama.
Alabama would be
State,
one loss
Ohio
because
State.
Florida would beat them, and then I
Yeah,
said
but
3
Ohio State would
one-loss.
be the one undefeated
Yeah.
team.
Oh, yeah.
3 one-loss
Yeah.
teams, and then an undefeated Ohio State is what I see. But ultimately, I see no Texas A&M in this picture.
Sounds good.
I agree.
All right, 3 more.